a code red for humanity. Curb emissions and dramatically reduce consumption or face a world that is fundamentally different.
When Kermit the Frog sang, "It's not easy being green," I want you to know that he was wrong. He was wrong.
There is no planet B. There is no planet blah. Blah, 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 blah.
It is unequivocal that human activities are responsible for climate change.
If unprecedented changes are not made and made soon, there will be irreversible damage to the planet.
Zero carbon.
East off.
Hello and welcome to Zero Carbonista Series 3, The Sky's the Limit. I'm Ian Collins and this is the UK's #1 environment-based podcast. And as ever, it's that phrase again. What a week it's been. On Monday, it looked as if we could have a change of Prime Minister, but Mr. Johnson just about survived. Now, of course, he can implement all of those green policies he promised. Let's speak to our man who would kick any vote of confidence squarely in the kahunas. He is the green entrepreneur and environmentalist Dale Vince. Dale, morning to you.
Yeah, morning, Ian. How's things?
Yeah, there was a moment there, wasn't it? You thought, well, is there a new Prime Minister by Tuesday? Oh, it didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen, did it? And green policies, you're obviously having a laugh there.
Big bucket of irony thrown onto that intro.
But I'm here thinking, as you say that, well, how about policies full stop, right? I mean, where are the policies of this government that aren't just culture war driven, like selling off Channel 4 and exporting asylum seekers to Rwanda? Do you know what I mean? I mean, what have they got by way of real policy that's doing anything about the price of living crisis, the energy crisis, the climate crisis, you name it, the Brexit crisis.
Yeah, and the energy crisis. I mean, I saw this headline as well in the week in The Guardian. I know you spotted it too. The failure by governments and businesses to accelerate energy efficiency efforts is inexplicable. This is according to the International Energy Agency. Because you'd think, you get a lot of grown men and women in a room. Somebody would come up with something.
But we all know this, right? That
when you're paid, by the way, to come up with stuff.
Come up with something. But the data's out there, the facts are out there. Everybody knows that the cheapest energy that we can make is the energy that we don't waste by having energy efficiency. That we get the biggest return, bang for buck, by investing in energy efficiency than in anything else. Forget heat pump solar panels, whatever, drilling in the North Sea. The IEA come up with a great kind of graphic way to describe this. If we double the rate of energy efficiency improvement from just 2%, as where it stands at, to 4% for a decade, we could slash global energy use by the same amount that China uses every year. Right? China, the favorite of the right-wing anti-climate people, is like, what's the point of us doing anything if China doesn't? All we've got to do is get to 4% improvement in energy efficiency for a decade, and China becomes irrelevant.
Yeah. You might, again, you might think people who are specifically paid to, it's not like they've got another job going on. This is the job, right? A significant part of it.
That's right. And then in a further part of the story, it points out that the government just approved a new gas field in the North Sea and another 8 billion of additional projects. This is investment in fossil fuels. And another report from a different think tank says actually with that 8 billion, we could insulate 3 million homes in the next handful of years and save those families between £500 and £1,000 a year. I mean, what's the better way to spend money? Investing in fossil fuels that are going to run out, or investing in using less energy?
We will ponder and continue to return to that, and we won't take our foot off the gas either. Here's a question from Greg on Twitter. I know you'll both be at WOMAD, but do you publish your speaking engagements and appearances elsewhere, Dale?
No. I don't. I bump into them in my diary and go, oh, shit,
are they not in the
today.
Telegraph every day? The court circular, when they have what the Queen is up to. There should be a sort of little caveat to that. And also, Dale will be at the chip shop at 6.
Yeah, on a Thursday, that happens. I'll be at the chip shop after football.
There you go. So we've already we've answered part of Greg's question. His thirst for your diary has been...
I'm going to be at WOMAD. We're going to be at WOMAD, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Jon Snow's going to be at WOMAD. It's going to be amazing. And we're recording a podcast at WOMAD on the Saturday morning, I think.
Live on stage.
That is, end of July, I think?
I think it is. Yeah, I've heard that rumor.
Tail end of July.
In fact, if there was somewhere where my engagements were published, I'd probably go look.
Well, that's true. I mean, Greg's kind of rumbled you there, really, hasn't he? Because he's exposed the the flaw. Because he's simultaneously asked a question which forced us to admit that there is no diary.
Actually, we don't have this on the agenda, but on the subject of where I'm going to speak, I'm off to Vienna this weekend. I'm meeting Arnie in Vienna at a climate conference and doing some kind of panel there with him. Hang
on a second. We're 5 minutes into a podcast and suddenly you've dropped the Arnie bomb.
Arnie bomb.
So you're meeting Arnold Schwarzenegger in Vienna.
Yes.
That just sounds like a plot of one of his films, doesn't it?
Sounds crazy, doesn't it? I'm going overland, as you might imagine, on trains.
Yeah, of course.
Which is going to be a bunch of fun. I've never been to Vienna before, but we got contact from Arnie's people a few months ago saying they love what Forest Green are doing. Can we come to this conference that he's, I think, jointly organising in Vienna, some global climate thing? I forget the title.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, I can't turn that down, right?
No. Yeah. He's been there before. I knew he'd be back.
I knew where you were going with that.
That sounds like an amazing weekend. Are you going to go on the town with Arnie?
Hey, I don't know. I don't know if he does stuff like that, but I do.
Yeah,
maybe I'll encourage him.
Well, that's for you to drag him out then. It's just as simple as that.
Right, that's right. I thought I'd challenge him to an arm wrestle, actually, just for the kick.
Yeah, I sense that might end in tears.
Yeah. But who's, right?
Well, life's full of surprise. He's an older guy now, so who knows? Here's a headline. Climate change, Ukraine war prompts fossil fuel gold rush, according to a report. The world is witnessing a gold rush for new fossil fuel projects, according to a report by leading climate change researchers. What's going on here?
Yeah, you've got to say it's fool's gold, right?
Yeah, right. Good point.
And we were just talking just now about the 8 billion being invested in the North Sea. I mean, what is the point, right? I mean, for one thing, nothing we produce in the North Sea has saved us a single penny in the energy crisis. 50% of our gas came from the North Sea this winter, and it never saved us a penny. It doesn't matter if we get to 70%, 100% even. It won't save us any money because we let global commodity markets set the price of the fossil fuels we sell to ourselves from our own North Sea. In any case, the North Sea is running out. It's going to be empty by 2030. So really, what's the point, guys? Fool's gold.
What is the point? Question here from Dawn on Facebook. What do you think the government will do when energy bills go up again? Is there anything else they can do? I'm struggling to pay and it's causing me sleepless nights. And I think Dawn probably sits with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of other people in that assessment, of course, because we've had this massive hike, but this is just the first one. There's another on the way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and it wasn't even the first one. It's just the first one this year.
Sure.
We get 2 a year, although Ofgem wants to make it 4 a year.
Why is there another one on the way, by the way?
Because it gets updated twice a year, so it'll happen again.
Can't they update it and not rise the cost? I mean, what's going on here? Why are bills going to definitely go up in October?
It's the global commodity markets that, setting the price of oil and gas. That sets the price of electricity. We become globalized in this way that we allow the global marketplace to dictate what we pay for energy, even when we make it from our own North Sea. I mean, it's madness, in my opinion. We need to break that link, and we need to break the link to fossil fuels as well. I mean, what the government are doing is throwing money at the high energy bills, like billions and billions of pounds. I think they're now going to give us all 400 quid off our energy bills, whereas a few months ago, Sunak's big wheeze was to lend us all 200 quid to help with energy bills. But this 400 quid they're going to give us now is dwarfed by the increase in bills that's coming in October. I mean, energy bills this winter are going to be £3,000 a year on average, right? That's twice what they were last year. It's 1,500 quid more, and the government are going to give us all 400 quid. And if you own a second or third home, you're going to get that 400 quid twice or three times as well, which is a bit clumsy, right?
Yes.
But what they really should be doing is investing that money in ways to bring bills down, like energy efficiency, because we can save an awful lot of money permanently by wasting less energy.
Yeah. Let's move to this story from New Zealand, where the Kiwis have unveiled plans to slap a tax on cow and sheep burps to cut greenhouse gas methane.
I love it. The fart tax, isn't it? That's what it is.
Essentially, yes. Yeah. It's a Trump tax.
Trump tax. I like it. Well, it's just another version of a cow tax or a meat tax. So, call it what you will, right? Animal agriculture is driving the climate crisis and all kinds of other problems. We've taken all of the land from nature globally in order to grow crops, to feed animals, to feed ourselves. We're killing ourselves in the process with this poisonous food, killing the planet. And we have to do something about it, and taxing it is, it's a pretty conventional way to go about it. And I mean, look at tobacco. It's been taxed to hell, isn't it?
It's a curious stat out there as well in New Zealand. You've got 5 million people, but 26 million sheep.
That's just wrong.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody could own 5 sheep.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to do the maths there.
I think that's about right. There's also 10 million cattle as well. I know this is a big export industry for them.
Yeah.
Nearly half its total greenhouse gas emissions come from farming, mainly in the form of methane. I don't know how what do you put a photometer on the anus of the beast? How do you?
I don't know. Right. I don't know how they do that. I don't know how a lot of stats come to us. Do you know what I mean? How do we know how much the world's cows fart and burp every year?
Yeah.
That's extrapolation of data, I guess. But, it's not just New Zealand that have these incredible ratios. In Britain, we raise and kill 1 billion animals a year, right? There's only 60 million of us in this country. It's 1 billion animals. A lot of them are chickens, right? So it's smaller than a sheep or a cow, but still. And that doesn't count fish, right? That's just land animals, 1 billion.
That's
every
an
year.
Extraordinary number, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do the maths, as everybody says. But yes, you haven't got to be that au fait with the environmental components and the arguments to see where the problem is just based on that number.
No, absolutely not.
In fact, interesting, talking about animals, I spotted this story. The energy costs, rising energy costs are forcing owners to give up pet reptiles. So people who own those kind of bearded lizards and why the hell anybody wants to is another matter. But of course, they usually require, fairly strong lighting for warmth and the like for the beasts. So as a result, people are giving them up.
Yeah. You make me think, actually, spare a thought for skunk farmers, right? They need a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
Weed. Skunk weed, not the beast. Skunk.
I'm sorry, I thought you were actually talking about skunks. I wasn't going to argue with you. I thought, wow, skunk farming. I'm not familiar with this. So, yeah, people are getting rid of corn snakes and various other things for that reason.
I don't see that as a bad thing.
Do you want to keep a bloody anaconda in your house for? You live on the 18th floor of a tower block.
It's not quite right, is it? For the creature, it's definitely
Buffalo
not right.
in the dining room, an anaconda in the living room. Some people love that stuff.
Yeah, and skunk. Some people love skunk as well.
That's very true. Yeah, pricey for those guys. This from Brett. Hi, Dale. Big fan and listener since the first episode. I'm researching ecotricity for an academic paper that looks at government policy around onshore wind. I know you haven't built windmills since 2007, but would you consider planning projects as a wind cooperative? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so we put out this plan a couple of years ago. We called it 100 Windmills for Gloucestershire. It was a Ron Seal name. We did a study of the entire county using GIS software and stuff. Mm-hmm. And we were looking for how many windmills it would take to power all of the homes in the county of Gloucestershire. It's about 600,000 people. And we found it was 100 windmills and that we just needed 3% of the hilltop land. And, that looked to us like a very, very reasonable ask. But in our concept, we went further than that. The idea of community ownership and community benefit is out there, but it's only really available to people with money to buy shares. And so it's exclusive, and we don't really like that. So we proposed that the local authorities of the county of Gloucestershire would own these 100 windmills, and they would have collectively an income, a benefit, a profit of about £7 million a year that they could use to spend on local services, which goes to benefit everybody. So, yeah, I'm a fan of community ownership, but the community needs to be bigger than just the people that can afford shares, in my opinion.
And this story as well. Britain's food supply is now vulnerable after spiralling energy bills prompted the permanent closure of one of only 2 major fertilizer plants. Farmers and meat processors warn that domestic fertilizer supplies are now under threat after CF Fertilizers announced it would shut down one of Britain's largest ammonia plants. What do we make of this?
Yeah, they own 2, as you say, and the government bailed one of them out, kept it running last summer. And this second one hasn't been used since then. So they're really just shutting down something that's not being used. And the threat that people are talking about is just the fact that if one of them breaks or blows up, we don't have another one, which is, understandable. But I think it's a bit hyped up to say we're suddenly vulnerable. But what it does show us how dependent we are on fossil fuels, because fertilizer is made from natural gas or fossil gas. And, agriculture depends on it. A byproduct is CO2. And the slaughterhouse industry relies on CO2.
Yeah.
It's euphemistically described as stunning animals before killing them, but actually it suffocates them to death is what CO2 is used for. It's a rather brutal way to kill creatures like chickens who are lowered in cages into CO2 chambers. They're literally gas chambers, and then they're suffocated to death. But yeah, so that hideous industry relies on CO2 as a byproduct of fertilizer.
Wow. I wanted to put this story in as well. I know it goes into what we've just been discussing about energy bills, but there was one story that kind of goes against some of the grim headlines, that energy bills could fall for most households under Ofgem plans to cut the standing charge. Can we just add that onto what we were just talking about, Dale? What do you think?
It really is fiddling with the edges of the problem, right? We're looking at energy bills of about £3,000 a year on average from this October. And these standing charges, what are they going to be? 5% of that, 150 quid a year. And, if Ofgem take them away, they'll just put them somewhere else. I mean, they can't take that cost away literally. They'll just say to energy companies, don't charge standing charges anymore, but recoup those costs through a higher unit rate. And that will help people that don't use a lot of energy, but have this relatively high standing charge compared to their energy bill. But, they can't magic away the cost of running networks, which is what the standing charges are for. So it's all a bit something and nothing, in my opinion.
And a final question from Yvette on Twitter. Why, it goes back to the age-old, we're almost back to where we began. Why are politicians fixated on fossil fuels even when they know renewables work? Again, it comes back to the group of people sitting in a room. You have one job. And for some reason, well, let's go for something that is more expensive and destructive rather than this.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. You've got people like the Oil and Gas Authority saying the North Sea will be empty by 2030. And if we had fracking now, it would be all gone by 2030. And yet you've got a government doubling down on fossil fuel investment in the face of the climate crisis. And all we're doing is kicking this can down the road. We know that we have to stop using fossil fuels. Let's call it by 2030 in Britain, or let's say at least we won't be making any here. What are we waiting for? Why aren't we investing now in renewable energy and energy efficiency and have all of the benefits of that sooner rather than later? And maybe, if we're lucky, avoid the worst of the climate crisis. It couldn't get any more stupid, in my opinion.
There it is. That is it for this episode. Have a cracking week, Dale. We'll speak next Friday.
Oh, I was thinking an Arnie sign-off, right? But,
yes, he will be back. And I can't wait. We'll get the Arnie lowdown this time next week.
Ian, I'm going to ask him for something special. I decided not to go for the arm wrestle, right? I'm going to try and get a recording from him of 3 words for this podcast.
Fantastic.
He'll be back.
Beautiful. That's what we need, isn't it?
That's what we need. It'll be fabulous.
Do that for us. He'll do that.
I think
You're
he
Dale
will.
Vince. He won't argue with you, Dale. Speaking of week, Dale.
Yeah, cheers.
Have a good one. That's it for this episode. Don't forget to follow this podcast from your podcast provider so that you get each new episode automatically. And do follow Dale on social media, twitter.com/DaleVince, facebook.com/DaleVince.
Zero carbon
east of